World War II ended. We gathered the best and brightest scientists from all over the world. A huge secret back then, but today it's known as Project Paperclip. Hidden from the public eyes, they worked with the most classified of technologies. The result was a miracle: fully operational spaceships in only 5 years. We sent our very best men into space, but they betrayed us. The technology we gave them was too powerful, and we had given them all we had. Without any earthly moral restrictions, and with the plentiful resources of space, they quickly advanced far, far, far ahead of us. Today, all we can do is beg, and help them in any way we can, in return for whatever bone they might throw us. I am a diplomat, Team Earth. I have been shown many things most people could not even dream of. Some great, some very frightening. Our brothers and sisters in space live greatly different lives than we do. Luckily, they have not decided to destroy us. Yet. Hello and welcome to the Vital Red Pill. Today I would like to share with you a very interesting 4chan thread. Is it real? Nobody knows. I personally think it's a very elaborated LARP, mostly based on the fact how he introduces new elements to the story. If he'd be real, he would bombard us with the best facts first, but in his story, the best came last. His story does not match up with what other independent sources are telling. His story lacks all the craziness that has been already disclosed to us. His story has no ancient high-tech, no portals, no crazy aliens, no consciousness-controlled weapons or spaceships, no other dimensional crazy shit, and also no interdimensional shape-shifting reptilian mantids. Instead, his story is mainly based on rockets, spaceships, and classic class warfare. But maybe he's the real deal, and just on purpose misinformed by his sources. Nevertheless, I recommend you listening to it all. Regard it as a thought experiment, a Gedankenexperiment, a type of what-if scenario. To his defense, he also mentions some things that are commonly disclosed in high-level leaks. For example, a secret space program is very likely real. Evidence? This guy has filmed some crazy shapes flying in space with his telescope. Keyword Solar Warden. Also, there's a famous NASA hacker, a guy who, back then, hacked into the servers of NASA and found some crew transfer lists with titles that are nowhere to be found on Earth. Titles that are not existing in any branch of the terrestrial military. Another thing that is publicly called a conspiracy theory but is most likely true is the idea of a breakaway civilization. This happens when a group of people has the means and the will to start a thing of their own and to never come back to the mainstream civilization. These type of places can be very good or horrible, depending on who's in charge of it. Stories of human slaves on Mars are more common than one would expect. As for advanced aliens, according to remote viewers and all types of spiritual people, aliens are everywhere. But that's a topic for another video. Now let's take a deep dive into the maybe real story of a human diplomat in space. And Nazis, of course. Every good story needs Nazis. Let's begin. 29th of April 2020. Mining settlements. I will give a quick overview of the scope of space mining driven advancements, a history, and then go into details, as well as give some anecdotes in the next several posts. An unknown amount of objects and interplanetary locations are currently inhabited by mining operations and outposts. Space exploration in recent decades has become an independent industry, as certain early locations became stable and habitable and reached material and financial autonomy. On these locations, research and scientific developments were able to progress faster than their predecessors on Earth, and achieve technological advancements more developed than Earth. Reasons for these developments happening in off-world settlements can be ascribed to a different paradigm, ethics, and resources. Earth Command has been suspended due to the fact that they have lost leverage. But despite this, off-world settlements maintain a deeply rooted diplomatic relationship with Earth intelligences in order to trade, share information, and overcome mutual challenges. On Earth, only a very select group of people are aware of the true advancements of humanity, and the thousands of off-world residents currently living in settlements. It is their job to maintain contact, and in some cases, travel to off-world settlements on a diplomatic mission. These trips are considered a life-altering experience for obvious reasons. Communications with Earth from settlements is also limited to officials and centralized. Between settlements, communications is more free and less formal, as basic infrastructure keeps their civilization going. The most interesting difference between Earth citizens and known settlements is their hierarchy. Since every settler has a task, they are classically born with less freedom and more duty, as though they would have had if they were born on Earth. These social structures would be considered slavery in Earth terms, but the most notable feature of this hierarchy is their dedicated regimen according to their assigned task. Many of them have underwent a rigid transformation from birth to enable them to become more suitable for a job. It can be said that the more sophisticated a certain function, the more extensively the subject has underwent programming, resulting in notable physical differences and abilities. I will detail more about this later. The techniques and principles these settlements were built on all had origins on Earth and were founded by Earth missionaries, but have long been perfected and outmatched by the resulting proficiency and prowess of mining companies. Many mining companies had built a limited abode on the surface of an object to place an observatory, communication center, dock, command center, and some residence for central command and visitors. Most of the activities happen below ground, where aside from mining, workers live, laboratories are outfitted, experiments and research is conducted, and a whole ecosystem to support a settlement exists. Planetary locations can be more versatile to different purposes, such as weapon testing, aviation, or research dedicated to planetary exploitation, including potentially terraformation. Larger bases can also be used for breeding programs and can have a primarily societal characteristic. Housing many citizens, though arranged according to the needs of a company, nothing compared to Earth, as their lives are dictated by central command, and in many cases they are an export product to be delivered to other missions. Off-world advancement has made any Earth-based space exploration initiative, apart from regular close orbit activity, obsolete. This includes defense operations, entrepreneurial missions, communication and intelligence systems, as they're all related to Earth science, politics and economy. Space mining is a peaceful capitalistic endeavor where companies are able to compete, but in reality they mostly keep to themselves, as there are objects plenty to mine and hostility is bad for business. It is an open secret that they spy on each other, and there have been accounts of alleged sabotage, but no major conflict or signs of overt hostility. The most powerful mining companies are actively communicating with Earth intelligences, as they trade technology, resources and intelligence, but companies are neutral to Earth politics, and they like to maintain their position as frontrunners, so they don't share their most potent and dangerous technology. Whatever deal is made is in mutual interest as to ensure linear development on Earth, as our means of travel and communication to them is outdated. They monitor us closely and at all times keep a presence ready within reach, on a nearby outpost, in orbit or on Earth. The only time to interfere is to avert cataclysmic disaster or threats to their infrastructure. During the days of cessation, direct efforts had to be taken to prove their capability to Earth command, but for several generations now, a new balance between Earth and extraterrestrial civilizations has been found in which trust and loyalty have been instrumental, despite Earth being out of the lead and left to their devices. Going into detail, some interesting things that can be found in human space settlements. First thing that will amaze you are the overall architecture, infrastructure, and technology if you were to arrive to a Class A settlement as an Earth diplomat, and the nonchalance of settlers that operate in this world naturally, and also the views. When you meet High Command, you are given a tour of the facility, A standard Class A settlement will have a dome embedded in the object being mined. That gives a view of the sky above, as well as the vast scale of operations inside, as this is the area that different departments come together. Data center, command in and outgoing traffic. This is the beating heart of the company and the pride of the settlement. Then it will become apparent that different breeds of settlers performing their assigned tasks. Most notable at first is the data center, a small glass structure with several floors facilitating highly capable administrators, seemingly embedded into the infrastructure, seated on railed pods that allow them to operate the data center as they interact with the operating system, the artificial intelligence that runs the facility. This building is a computer, manned by more than human, hyper-intelligent operators capable of memorizing vast sequences of code, with such enhanced cranial properties that they cannot live without support outside of this environment. They have no identity, they are not functionally human. They exist to support a computer system, analyzing data, calculating risk assessments, double-checking, troubleshooting. They might eventually not recognize a human being, as their integration processes as social interaction for these operatives is limited from birth, and even their development is significantly automated. Military personnel is not often trained on a typical mining location, but there are some stationed. Their most impressive feats are seen in action, as they pilot advanced machines no ordinary human being is capable of learning. The pilot breed undergoes similar programming as a data operative, as they are also required to process complex information fast. However, they are more physically autonomous, are in fact athletic, and could also be deployed for other tasks and vehicles. An impressive display of actions is rarely seen for diplomats, as crises are rare and rarely need deployment. One of the more impressive vehicles is the Colibri, a small lightweight vessel for one man that can make rapid maneuvers changing such as stopping, accelerating, ascending, descending, taking turns, fly at high speeds, and access difficult terrain such as a crater, crevice, or structure. This vehicle is suitable for crisis response, scouting, and stalking, is suitable for the vacuum of space, as well as atmospheric flight, and has been equipped on Earth as well, and is able to enter and leave atmosphere in flight. The technology is not understood by Earth scientists and could not be manned by Earth military personnel, as no Earth citizen can process the reaction times required to pilot an aircraft capable of such speeds and maneuvers. It has a cockpit and several wings that can be adjusted in flight to perform certain maneuvers or to form a certain profile. It can appear to look like a dart, a star, a disc, or the more conventional triangle. Notably, the line of aircraft this was part of was based on Earth technology, as the foundation of Earth aviation continued to be instrumental for the current military development. However, to most of Earth observers, this craft would be unrecognizable, as it outmatches their understanding of military aviation in every regard. It is reported to make a distinct metallic rattle or whiz as its lightweight appendices carried through the air, giving its unique characteristics the nickname of the Kolibri or hummingbird. Hummingbird in German means Kolibri. A recent crisis has caused a Class A mining operation to be in jeopardy, as a violent disease surfaced from beneath the facility that went undetected, as the data center was believed to be compromised, allowing the spread to be rampant across the facility until it reached upper levels, causing High Command to initiate quarantine protocol and prompted the arrival of a Colibri and the subsequent evacuation of present Earth Doplomat as well as High Command. Majority of assets at point of extraction had been lost to their fiction, which attacks and hijacks neutral networks, spreads through contact and causes excited delirium, inhabits impulse control and causes explosive, rapid behavior with a fixation on organisms lacking a pheromone that is expelled in infected organisms. Scientific efforts are made to breed immunity in order to successfully research the component found in several mining operations that caused multiple reports of outbreak-related malfunction. Earth population rumored to be a designated test group to attempt herd immunity. An Anon asks, Can you describe some of the other breeds and their physical characteristics? To which he replies, High Command are the class that carry the self-assigned responsibility of human genetic purity. They practice eugenics to a high standard and are all-round fit, intelligent, and have excellent discipline and work ethic. Their average skill sheet outmatches what is rarely seen naturally on Earth and would be considered exceptional to us. They would compete in Olympics and high-level chess competitions with fair ease. A stark contrast with miners who are selected for brute strength and only the necessary intelligence to follow orders and perform simple tasks. Consider the work ethic of Chinese with the physical strength of Africans. They work hard. Ananon says, That's dope. What happens when one of the assigned classes wants more out of life? Have there been organized revolts consisting of multiple or single worker classes? To which he replies, No such reports are known. It is unthinkable given the structural organization of these settlements. Their settlers lack incentive for revolts. A miner is a miner. He is not a dreamer. Of he dreams of mining more than he had the day before. There are no stars for him to see, no world above, no question of authority. The systems are fail-safe as long as the integrity of command is intact. The power that comes with the programming technologies that enable the programmer to create a psychological slave could spell disaster in the wrong hands. So far, everything points towards these systems being put towards their own progression. The same goes for the indoctrination methods and breaking of the will as with aviation. The basis was laid on Earth, and this too being done by intelligences. They don't just hire geniuses, they make them. It's pretty old stuff. And Anon asks, Especially among a lethal disease, I imagine shit would get chaotic and unpredictable very fast. What happens when a mining settlement breaks down into unmitigated chaos? To which he replies, A normal response is containment, decontamination, and evacuation with minimal loss of assets, and in some cases continued operations if the company feels safe doing so or can afford to sacrifice some workers. Ananon asks, How many companies are there? To which he replies, Less than a dozen. A company can own several installations. Ananon asks, Is each company different in their ethical treatment of worker classes, professional hierarchies, etc., or do all of them follow the same template of operations, so to speak? To which he replies, There are differences in terms of which direction they take as a society, since a company isn't just a company. They are a human experiment following a certain path, with their own choices, developments, and techniques. The ones conducting business with Earth are classified as Class A companies. Earth intelligences are incapable of tracking all activity and development. We have to trust Class A relation data and what corresponds with our own findings. Models predict Class A loyalty to Earth in case of conflict with other off-Earth settlements. We are just given enough to defend ourselves, but not to overtake their capability. Class A civilizations keep us down intentionally, as to protect their own economy and off-world relations. If the balance is lost, rogue civilizations might just want to commit piracy, hijack a couple installations, or put their claims on Earth soil. In which case they need to overthrow our governments and subject humanity to slavery, as they can. Another Anon asks, Since when has this been going on, and what moons, planets, asteroids, etc. have colonies? To which he replies, The basis for these settlements have been laid on Earth over the past 100 years. From aviation to mass psychology, these things were invented on Earth. World War II kicked off space travel. In the 50s they started sending people up. The astronauts on TV were not the first. Many test runs were made and a small base on the moon was present. The TV show was for propaganda purposes. Quickly, programs were developed to facilitate complete off-world communities, as it would be more profitable. If these things weren't done in secret, everybody and his mom would be in the space mining industry. And it would be a giant mess. And Anon asks, Found any extraterrestrial life form on any? To which he replies, There are reports of life with extraterrestrial origin, but nothing more advanced than ourselves. A big problem is running into frozen ancient pathogens, because it can shut down an operation. Another Anon asks, "This sounds pretty cool, but also pretty retarded. What stops one of these engineered beings from trying to take over? Did they somehow find a way to breed out a human capacity for rebellion?" To which he replies, "Genetic engineering and indoctrination. The miners don't know shit. Also, why over-specialize for different roles? For efficiency. Doesn't that breed in weakness, considering if there's a failure you can't just swap in a new recruit? They come in batches. You would have to have a reserve of similarly trained beings. That doesn't seem economical, especially considering the limitation of resources on other worlds. Unless that was all a lie and there's actually water and atmosphere out there. They don't settle on lumps of dust." Asked on the topic of nutrition, he replies, "On top of farming, they're also proficient at recycling. Bodies are food, nothing is wasted." An Anon comments, "Thanks OP, I'ma steal this shit and write a novel now." To which he replies, "If you reference this thread, I'm buying it." Here's the current situation. Either we concede with our Class A superiors and they get to lay claim on Earth, soil and subject us to their command. In return we get protection, advancement and a place in their interplanetary economy. It can put Earth back on track. Or we allow current affairs to continue at risk of any other company taking advantage of our vulnerability, with no guarantee of safety or progress. Current talks are held with global intelligences to discuss our shared position in interplanetary affairs and where our future lies. It looks like many voices are in favor of conceding with our Class A superiors. However, not everyone is aware of the sacrifice that has to be made in order to take this step, as 99% of humanity is unfit to be included in their society. To which an Anon comments, "We are a stagnant species anyways. Our progress works like this already. Most people just eat, sleep, work, while a few super geniuses revolutionize the planet. Regular people to genius are what smartphones are to tin cans and fishing line in a tree fort. The only issue is that every class you've mentioned so far sucks. I don't want to be a stupid miner, some inhuman algorithm sorter, etc. It seems like this is really some sort of capitalist dystopia where only the elites are allowed to have free will." To which he replies, "A good portion of people are normal. Scientists, builders, teachers. Aside from eugenic enhancements, no major procedure is necessary to tweak their abilities for these key roles. There will always be some selection and indoctrination, but that's also true for anyone on Earth. The difference is that we are not the frontrunners, and our ways have become outdated, obsolete, dysfunctional. Every space settler is a descendant from the most capable scientists, astronaut, and military personnel that the best economies at the times could produce. They have evolved. It's not going to be a question of what if they begin to decide our fate for us, but when. As a diplomat, my role in our future can be decisive, and I'm not opposed to pruning their genetic waste in order to transform Earth into an interplanetary hub. Perhaps our influence as Earthlings will introduce more freedom, more secularism. We are already a market, anyways, through diplomatic relations. It's unthinkable to expose the masses of poor, uneducated, frustrated tribal humanities to the structures of organization and technologies applied in space. Chaos would ensue and abuse of technology would quickly throw the world into disarray, negative impacting our chances of interplanetary community and pose a safety risk to outer space settlements. You don't want to give a bunch of nukes to chimpanzees. Space exploration requires a strong sense of responsibility in order to be successful. The power the average space traveler has can't be trusted to the average Earthling. Not in 100 years of indoctrination or eugenics. Most human breeds are simply unfit. We are locked up on prison Earth with our primitive counterparts for our own safety, with outdated technology. You don't know any better. This is your home. This is your life. But in reality, it's primitive and poorly developed. Earth science is restricted by morals, dominated by politics, and usurped by corporations. The real change was happening in space. Ananan asks, "Can you tell us more about interesting, unusual, or otherwise related information or findings about certain places in the solar system, such as Europe, Titan, Mars, or Enceladus, if you have actually explored or established colonies in these worlds. To which he replies, the moon has an outpost where most Earth/off-Earth meetings take place, since it is close, not intimidating to Earth residents, and provides plenty of space to demonstrate new weapons technologies. The asteroid belt has several Class A installations, as most installations in our solar system are owned by a Class A mining company, meaning directly descending from past Earth initiative. When you go further out, independent and rogue companies operate in their own regions. They are mostly confined to the Oort cloud. I've seen the moon and most recently an installation in the asteroid belt. They probe objects and test for density and material. When a site is suitable, station modules are shipped and attached to the surface, after which operations can begin fairly quickly. Within a year, an object can house up to 100 settlers in a protected, self-sustained environment. I only have estimates as to the spread and amount of objects being mined and how many people live off Earth. I haven't seen it, but I heard Mars has a greenhouse colony in a ravine. They call it a trench, where they're reviving indigenous fauna spores and seeds for terraformation solutions. They compare the material to prehistoric Earth plant life, but it may be due to the fact that those samples are more resilient and durable and more suitable for long periods of hibernation. And Anon asks, the Oort cloud, how long does a spaceship take to travel from, say, the moon all the way to the Oort cloud? Anything interesting going on in the Kuiper belt and worlds like Pluto, Eris and other trans-Neptunian planetoids? I also find it kind of odd they'd genetically engineer humans for mining operations as opposed to simply automating as much as possible in that regard. To which he replies, in fact, it is the Kuiper belt where the first company seceded from Central Command and expanded towards outer objects and eventually set out for the Oort cloud. My knowledge is limited. I would say it takes less than 5 years to reach the Oort cloud. You could have a basis set up in 25 years and from there colonize surrounding objects with more ease. There won't be any concern for scarcity for the foreseeable future. That is, in terms of materials. Human resources have been the main important asset for the success of these operations. This has been the way it's set up from the first day, and those fundamentals are still in effect to this day. When the first pioneers set out, technology wasn't developed to such an extent that automation could be considered as one of the possibilities. Even then, no automated system can truly replace the role of human conquest, even if they are being enrolled today. Yes, there's automation and artificial intelligence, but they serve human command and won't just replace the progress and importance of human resources that have been at the core of these operations from the get-go, and have been developed just as much as other disciplines of human development. A robot wouldn't need even to mine anything in the first place. It could just sit in a corner and be happy. No, due to an egocentric approach, a deeply rooted sense of importance and duty and loyalty has been instilled into the improved breeds of humans, most importantly the upper class, such as scientists, military, command. They have evolved. And Anon asks, how can I join a research project on these bases? I am a scientist. To which he replies, right now, Earth is only interesting for mining companies for trade and medicine. Our population is a good repellent against a potential takeover, since we are quite useless and unproductive, and unfit to compete with their social order and technology. But we tend to share diseases around until we develop immunity and vaccinations that can be traded in return for technology. But now it's a problem, where every once in a while they dig up the same pathogen that caused them to abandon an installation and move to the next one. They call it the Fermi fever. Fermi like in the Fermi paradox. This one has no known origin, and they are hesitant handling it to do more research and develop their own cure when they could just as well relocate. Right now there's reason to believe they are considering releasing it on Earth. Let it run its course, and when our global order is destroyed, move in and take control. It's a big dilemma, since on the one hand I support our integration into the modern age of space exploration. It is also my duty to protect our interests and trying to establish a diplomatic solution with our superiors. But I'm running out of ideas. Companies are getting impatient, and it's a waiting game for one of them to invade and subject Earth to their system and take our resources. Ananon asks, another question I have is, how do these colonies and their people deal with the much lower gravity? Are they physically unable to live on Earth now? To which he replies, not sure about the exact details, but the settlements have breathable air and gravity around 1G, at least the ones I know of. Then Anon asks, what will happen to the 99% unfit for this advancement way of life? Who decides who is fit? To which he replies, that's the big issue right now. Earth humans are obsolete. What now? Do we continue as a pet project for the companies in trade for medicine and experimentation? My hope is that of each tribe on Earth, each race, samples or individuals of the purest breed can be taken to off-world locations for further integration, and even repopulate Earth with the better version of ourselves. This would preserve our biodiversity and usefulness in studies of eugenics and medicine. In any case, it is time for a new era. Our days are over, and our usefulness is coming to an end. Ananon says, Fermi fever? Well, let us help. I mean, who can? To which he replies, unfortunately, nothing can be done. You may have noticed already self-disclosure coming out in the past years, and at this point I wish it was aliens. It would be much easier to explain and there would be no moral consequences if anything happened. Depending on what narrative they spin, you should start worrying. If it goes toward that this tech could be from Black Book projects, it's good news. If the narrative goes towards fear-mongering and alien invasion, it means whatever is about to happen, no party wants to take responsibility for it. But I am not the highest authority in these matters. More intelligences are involved, and as well as our wealthy and powerful elites. It is also possible that these sightings are the result of Earth citizens having gotten their hands on technology threatening the powers that be. Maybe that is something like you, a vigilant, dare to strike back at any hostilities, or perhaps something more sinister. I haven't been briefed well since my latest emergency, and with crisis emerging and communications down, I might as well take it here to gain some attention. If I'm left in the dark, my mission is jeopardized, and my loyalty lies with Earth, allowing me to whistle-blow. The people who need to know this is their call for action. The thing is about to be blown right open. It's a miracle people haven't figured it out themselves. Well, many did. And Anon asks, would the advanced colonies have any need for an average musician? To which she replies, you can still be a hero on a sinking ship. And Anon raises some concerns and says, an alien pathogen infecting a human doesn't make too much sense from an evolutionary perspective. I love the idea that there are currently existing human settlements all over the solar system, but there's a lot of issues concerning the technical aspects of all of these stories. To which he replies, these are only issues because of your limited understanding of their developments. Walking around like you would now on an installation on an asteroid is possible. Earth is advancing science in its own speed. We'll get to it eventually. The same can be said about your evolution argument. Your understanding of evolution and solar system is limited. Asked if he had seen humans turn into food, he replies, I haven't had the privilege. Another Anon, using the same name as the Doplomat, asks, why don't girls like me? To which he replies, because you take pleasure mocking online strangers rather than spending time pursuing romantic relationships. Another Anon asks, another question, have they done any experimentation or attempted some sort of colony or whatnot on Venus? I'm more fascinated by that hostile planet than Mars. To which he replies, when we still had the same things, Venus was long considered a good tourist destination. Plans were drawn to launch Heaven's Resort, a luxury Zeppelin hotel in the clouds of Venus, much like a yacht at the sea. Unfortunately, space exploration took a different turn as miners became obsessed with accumulation of wealth and expansion of their syndicate and self-interest. Now, Earth missions are restricted to whatever they allow us to discover. Our halting efforts in space exploration and scientific developments are deliberate. But off Earth, development continued in the same speed as it did before on Earth. Our majority advancement in the past 70 years are touchscreens, while World War II saw jet propulsion and stealth technology. This should make anyone suspicious. Not that anyone has the power to make a difference, and if they do, they risk being sabotaged. Elon Musk is far more inventive than it seems. He just perfectly knows what he's allowed to do and what not. That car in orbit is a huge fuck you to Space Command. Anyway, Venus is mostly used for waste disposal. Another Anon asks, so if a terrestrial like me, scientist, wants to do all his biotech, bioinformatics stuff and doesn't give a fuck who is in charge of planet Earth, that's what I mean for helping. I just like to do what I'm doing and I don't mind working for new overlords. To which he replies, you're on Team Earth. Your achievements will count for scientific progress on Earth, which is still legit and valuable. To which the Anon replies, well, after learning about all of this, I'd say it's more irrelevant. But thanks for the support. It's like being kids left to play with toys at this point, with this perspective. To which he replies, well, if an invasion is imminent, I have forewarned you, and you can use this information to protect your loved ones. Save this threat. Narrative is being pushed more and more to aliens, which is a good indicator they plan to restructure Earth. I wouldn't hold it against you to defend against hostile powers. I am sure that whatever they throw at us, pockets of survivors will remain. To what avail, I don't know. But as long as there's humanity, there is hope. I must stress that at this moment I am in the dark as to the current state of affairs, which is unusual. But if there was an emergency, I'd be informed. So, I can't predict the future, but things are unstable right now. And Anon asks, is any of this the reason why humans haven't stepped on the moon in 50 years? Also, there are reports that the first astronauts there reported spacecraft there. Was it the people that had settled there before us and not actual aliens? Pause the video to check out the drawing to see what he is talking about. The Doplomat replies, absolutely. Early space missions were so successful that they became autonomous and authority came under their own command. All we could do was sit and watch in anticipation, but gradually it became clear that we were losing control and that they got ahead of us. There were some incidents to try to regain control which ended in a downed craft in Nevada desert and subsequently being unable to reverse engineer it. We sent our best up there and they said, so long, sucker. Eventually, all we could do was beg, and since then we help them in any way we can in return for whatever bone they throw us. Under Trump, some of the early days of optimism is back, which is good. Nothing prevents us from establishing a presence in orbit and developing our own technology, and it opens up more doors with our off-world relations, either by improving our own technology or by making trade easier with a space-focused economy. That is what Trump does. When there's someone higher up he needs a favor from, he isn't going to be depressed and play the victim. No, he takes initiative, makes a friendly gesture, and starts a conversation. He did the same with Russia and North Korea. And Anon asks, invasion imminent? How would they do that? Do they have nukes and some other unfathomable weapons? I mean, from what you said, there's only a few thousand people out there versus millions of military around the world. Did the technology gap get so wide in just a few decades? To which he replies, it depends on their goals. They can persuade governments to surrender peacefully and from there subject the population with an iron fist. If they want depopulation, an outbreak is very precise in targeting large populations and leaving infrastructure intact. But yes, their military is more developed than we can conceive. And Anon asks, are you with us in case of shit hits the fan? To which he replies, I am an asset. I'll be taken prisoner ahead of an attack and kept alive as long as I'm resourceful. But I'm with you. I wish I could do more. Your best chance of survival is hiding and not letting anyone know you exist. They won't care about 5% survivors. They're not going to physically search every square inch for human flesh. But anything that makes you less visible will help. No contact, no electricity. Stay in a fallout bunker that nobody knows exists. And if you have a bunker, set up a network with other people who do, because you're going to want to share news, trade, and make long-term survival plans. And Anon comments regarding the fact that there are no revolts as long as the authority remains intact. He says, "This part reminds me when I played a role-playing game. I created a society like this. And when a revolt happens, Earth and other companies jam any outgoing system and destroy the planet with a virus bomb or nuclear or secret orbital weapons. After months they declare an alien race attacked them and our biomodified weapons humans came to restore peace, but none survived for the virus. Because they didn't want to know other planet can do a revolt, because it's an old ideology that was destroyed. But yeah, you're on X, it's talking about sci-fi, so what you explain makes sense. But in reality we don't know until we experience it with our own flesh. But some parts seem too much. I mean sci-fi. I mean if it's a book, this stuff like a sci-fi book, I declare it a hard sci-fi. And I'd say, really good job. You did a really good Fred." To which the diplomat replies, "Does it make sense to you that our development stopped after World War II? That we had no major advancement in military and science? The stuff we use now is the same stuff from 70 years ago, except overdeveloped. We are working with outdated tools, overpower them and call it progress. The progress that does happen is grassroots and won't get picked up by the masses. And in government, it's only what we are allowed to have, and it doesn't benefit the planet or anyone's life. The 50s and 60s were full of propaganda to prepare the population for a space-oriented society. That's when we still had the upper hand. Guess when it stopped? We did a moon landing and called it a day." Ananon asks, "I have a few questions. You said there's no major conflict, so there still be like covert operations? Like Earth has a hostage problem on a mining world and like a diplomat never came back or heard from him. What they'll do to make a grand interplanetary media campaign or not?" To which she replies, "They're not belligerent and they're smart enough not to start a fight with somebody they are already more superior to. That said, we do have some defensive and offensive ability, but only to stall them, nothing to hold off a major assault or to pressure them with. I will leave it at that for OPSEC." The Anon then continues, and this brings me to the second question. The media are interplanetary or local? To which the diplomat replies, "Earth is a closed, isolated environment. There's propaganda, some sinister too, but nothing you see on TV isn't made by the people on Earth for the people on Earth. We don't share any of our network with settlements. They don't have TV, internet, or porn." Anon then raises his third question. "Just because on this board we speak about religion and conspiracy theories, etc., etc., religion will still be a thing and would conspiracy theories remain? Like, isn't it a new world order or like new universe order? A cabal of mining facilities who control the Earth government and stuff?" To which the diplomat replies, "They don't control or dictate what happens on Earth, but they do monitor us, manipulate certain events and actively play a role in our scientific advancement. They even do it in such a way that no world government gets the upper hand and that a balance between powers is maintained. They feed breadcrumbs, always keeping a distance between us and them. But this is not sustainable. A long-term solution must come." And Anon says, "I feel useless now, but trying to be optimistic while pretending doing something useful for our scientific community." To which the diplomat replies, "Don't feel useless. We need positivity. Imagine being a poor villager in Africa. Would you stop digging a well just because Westerners have tap water? Don't give up, Anon. You're on Team Earth." And Anon raises question about that they have no porn in space. To which the diplomat replies, "I can't speak for the other companies, but the one I am affiliated with show a tightly organized daily routine for all their members. They are on a lifelong mission. You are so accustomed to perversion you don't even realize plenty of communities on Earth abstain and have no access to porn, or avoid it willingly. with proven results in fertility, happiness, productivity, and health. And Anon asks how the off-worlders deal with sexual urges. To which the diplomat replies, "It is still very much present, but they have learned to redirect excess energy into more productive outlets. Sexuality isn't fetishized or perverted in their ranks. In fact, habitual masturbation on Earth is excessive and purely a cultural development." And Anon sums up the whole thread and comes to his conclusion, meaning, "This thread sucks, lol." To which the diplomat replies, "Try to be less cynical. Despite what you think, your attitude is primitive. None of the technological progress you mention is innovative. They are refurbishments of outdated technology. Oh, you can tell your lamp to go off. Your coffee will be made at a set time? That's just perfect to keep you occupied from asking big questions." And Anon asks, if there's all this communication between all the space companies, why hasn't anyone on Earth detected them? I mean, amateur astronomers and whatnot detect signals all the time. Why wouldn't someone detect some weird radio signal or something from one of these colonies? To which the diplomat replies, "Bases use a data relay system, and ships are synchronized to central command. It's hive technology. The computer knows where any given pilot is and can direct beams at precise targets. They don't blast radio waves into a wide circumference like we do for the past 100 years. I'm talking about optical lasers. They can't be picked up by anyone besides the intended recipient." And Anon asks, how do political situation on Earth reflect in space? Are world governments covertly collaborating in space, or do political rivalries spill out there? To which he replies, "Yes, there's covert collaboration. I am a government agent, and everything related to space mining is covert to the public of Earth. The projects began in secret, and these secrets were never disclosed to them, and have gotten out of control. We are in a diplomatic crisis ever since. But their politics are different to ours, and completely separate. For example, you might be worried who the next president might be next year, while they are debating what should be done with Earth. It's a problem for them too, because we aren't in any war with them, but they can't integrate our population safely without it being seen as an act of war by us. This is why I'm worried about the alien invasion narrative. I am feeling as though Earth is being sold off to the highest bidder. Despite that, people are working hard to make up for our lag, such as working on our own DRS. Our goal is to just try and break even with our cousins in space for peaceful integration. Back to the prospects of a space-oriented society." And Anon says, "Since you've mentioned colonies all the way out in the Oort cloud, have they sent probes to something like other stars, like Alpha Centauri? I mean, people here have sent probes that have left the solar system already. I figure an advanced space company would have done the same decades ago." To which he replies, "I doubt it, but I don't know for sure. The next arms race is whoever weaponizes antimatter for the next centuries. From then we can move up the Kardashev scale as a collective, as power will become centralized, and all will fall under command of a single power. That's a long time from now, but protocols are already being focused towards that goal." Another Anon asks, "Can you elaborate on corporate governance? How are mining companies incorporated? Who owns their shares? Are they privately held or traded on an exchange? What currencies are in circulation? How are income and wealth and distributed? What is GDP per capita by Earth standards? Are there other sectors such as services, food, agriculture, logistics, and entertainment?" To which he replies, "A single company will have an automated system that regulates physical stock, trading, and supply chain between different locations. There's a market between companies, but that's more of a bartering system where AIs handles deals and transactions. These things are way more refined and precise than systems we use. I'm not sure about the finer details of lower class life. Maybe miners use systems to trade things of value. Maybe there's black market for rogue colonies and backdoor deals. I haven't been involved in these matters." And Anon asks, "What do the people who are plenty much trapped in those habitats do for entertainment?" To which he replies, they take joy in honing their skills and training, which they can do in simulated environments. In fact, it's part of their regiment as it keeps them in proper condition. And Anon asks many questions, to which the diplomat replies, we have 3 categories of technology. Stuff that came from us and that is publicized. For example, GPS. Stuff that came from us that is classified. And stuff that came from space and that is classified. Stuff in space used to come from us. Now they are self-sufficient. But they still work from the basis we provided, so we can estimate which project they have been able to finish. They have projectile weapons and energy weapons, plasma and radiation. Just like we do, but they're also a step ahead. The one limitation I know they have is restricted use of AI in defensive situations. War and combat are uniquely human situations, and they are still in the process of tuning AI to reliably operate in a system that can make better decisions than a trained person, before fully automating their defensive apparatus. DRS stands for Data Relay System, in which machines communicate on long distances using lasers. Your proposition of taking terrestrians on exchange is inadequate. First, it's inefficient to expend resources into an asset there's no use for. They are not going to want to babysit tourists. Second, there's too many people and not enough capacity to re-educate enough people at a time. The birth rate on Earth is higher than people can be taken in. They would just be another handful of nutjobs who add nothing to the global consciousness, even if they do speak the truth. The add-on asks him to try a look into the new Swabia Nazis, the story that Nazis escaped to the North Pole after the Second World War. To which he replies, the space program was birthed from Operation Paperclip in conjunction with US intelligences. There was no ideology on our agenda. The goal was purely to get our hands on jet propulsion, to be the first ones to mine ore from space and boost our economy. Aside from technology, indoctrination was equally important in assuring an efficient and fail-safe staff. But their success worked against us, and they succeeded. We never predicted this could happen. And Anon asks him about Antarctica, to which he replies, I am not officially briefed about Antarctica, but it's an open secret that they have their Earth base there. I suspect a legitimate Nazi presence was holding off there for decades after the fall of the Reich, under command of Hitler from Argentina, and that the operation was thwarted due to infiltrators who then landed on Antarctica and rescued the personnel. This implies that our German assets in Operation Paperclip had not surrendered and managed to covertly direct a coup against Earth Command. After all, the indoctrination and mind control techniques we applied were in part adopted from Nazi techniques. Evidently, we underestimated the success of those techniques, and the level of conviction of Nazis as well. What Antarctica is used for now, I don't know, because I have been taken to the moon, but it's always been clear that they have been selective in what they share with whom. It is clear that there is still a propaganda campaign against these supposed long-dead antagonists, leaving me to wonder what powers are still involved when they have to come up with pick-related. The picture is the poster of the movie Iron Sky. Beep! That automation could be considered as one of the beep. The difference is that we are not on beep. It's not going to be a question of what if beep. The power of the average beep. Another Anon asks, since when has this been going on with the moon's beep? We have 3 categories of We have 3 categories. Categories. We have 3 categories of categories. Categorien. Beep.